Hello everyone. In my last video I was discussing more on call transaction method, and then what we did exactly is that we tried to see that how we can automate the data upload of different customers using the call transaction method in BDC, and then we uploaded some 5 customers. I also explained about the external and internal number ranges. And then I wanted to show one thing here, that couple of standard SAP programs, if you see, for example, I tried to search for few, so you can see that even standard SAP is also using a call transaction method in certain cases. For example, if you see this VL01, so what happens when you call the transaction VL01 basically to create the delivery? In that case, internally system calls the statement that is called transaction VL01. So it's nothing but the same thing which we did. So it's a kind of BDC. So I mean, even the standard SAP is also doing a BDC. If in case of certain transactions, you can see like VL01 using BDC data. So wherever you see using BDC data like here, it means they are doing a BDC. BDC is again batch data communication. So I'll just come out of the screen. Similarly, if you search in VA01, I couldn't find, but I remember during one of my projects I saw that even for the creation of sales order using VA01, internally SAP uses this statement called transaction VA01 mode A or E, whatever. So as I explained earlier, if there is a mode N, which means it won't display any screen, it's like running the BDC in background. If there is mode A, it means it will go via all the screens, and if there is mode E, then it will go only to the errored screens, so that you can correct the data and then you can move further. Now in real time, when you are uploading some more than 10,000 customers in your production, then it's not possible to go via each screen. So what we do generally, we put mode N, and then we collect all the messages in a message internal table, which is actually based out of the structure BDC MSG COLL, which is basically BDC message collections. So it will capture certain parameters like message ID, message number, and then couple of texts, which we can convert into a proper sentence using this function module message text build. There is another function module format underscore message. You will see people even using that also, but the concept remains same. Once we collect the message, we can display that in the output, which is just okay, because we know how to display an ALB grid now. If you remember, I also while creating a new program, what I did, I copied few things from I also copied. So if you see, this program was actually generated by recording, which I did via SHTB transaction, and then later I used that recording to generate a program. So what I did, I didn't copy this field perform BDC transaction. If I go inside, so you can see that there are two things here. If session equal to X, which means we are using the session method, then what we will do, we will use a function module BDC insert. Now BDC insert, what it will do, it will create a session for your recording. So I'm coming to the session part. Otherwise, if no session, then we are simply using the call transaction statement, and then it will do its job. BDC open group, BDC insert we will be discussing. So the standard program, not this, sorry. So the standard program which got generated via BDC is also capable of running a BDC, but then the problem here is we need to enable the program, we need to make it capable of importing the data from an Excel sheet or a notepad file or any other location, and then we want to handle the messages in based on our requirement. So we just copy the relevant contents from it, which should be our recording, starting here till here. Now this part we will be doing now after this. And then what I did, I went into this include, I went till the end, and I copied these two forms or subroutines. I copied this and I copied this. So why I did this? Because when I'm copying this recording generated code, which means perform, you can see everywhere we have a perform, this using program name, screen name, or field name, cursor and field name, or the OK code. So whatever it is, if I do a double click, so it goes here. So we want this to be available in our program, otherwise the subroutine would not work. So that's why I did a double click here, and then I went to the end. I copied these two things in my program. So what we do, we copy the relevant contents and then we put it in a new program. So that is how a BDC will be created, be it a call transaction method or be it a session method. Now I have already explained what a call transaction method is. This is our BDC program. So this is how we call a transaction. Now okay, let me see if yeah, there is a breakpoint. So I'll select the file once again, execute this. So this is the call transaction statement. Normally what we do when, in debugging mode, when we come here, what we do, we normally hit a F6 so that it will actually skip that part. But if you see here, okay, we are but if I do an F5 here, so what I wanted to tell you here is it actually calls the program of the transaction in the backend, and it actually goes via all the screen validations. Just have a look at this screen for now, and then you'll understand it better when you're going through module pool programming, which I'll be covering later. So it actually goes inside the screen of that program. It does all the screens validation. So this validation actually helps in terms of different kind of validation. For example, you are creating a customer for a plant, let's say 1000, but then that customer is not valid for that plant. So it will go to that screen, it will apply that validation which is written in the back end of that screen programming, and it will, if it gets any error message, it will collect it here. So basically I wanted to explain here is that BDC actually goes via screen by screen, field by field, and applies all the screen validations. That way BDC process is actually slower, and then that is how SAP came with the concept of BAPIs, which is Business Application Programming Interface, that we will be covering just after BDC is done. So BAPI is different in the way that it actually hits the business repository directly, So business repository directly hitting means it's not going via screen. In fact, it will directly hit the business object or repository in the back end, and it will do the business process, which could be creation of sales transaction, sales order, purchase order, whatever it is. So business object repository will be linked to a particular business process, and there would be methods inside that, and BAPI will be taking care of it. But again, I mean, people who are like experienced, and then people who are good in debugging by now, they can, and if they know how to call a BAPI in their program, if they do a deep dive, you'll find that internally, I mean, if you keep on going, so in few BAPIs, or I would say like in 60% of the BAPIs, a BDC will be called. So BDC remains a classic concept, but then BDC is basically used very widely. You might not see it being used in the front end, but then in the back end at many places, I mean, even a lot of standard transactions still would go via this BDC concept. So what you need to remember here is that BDC goes via screen and field, each screen, each field, whatever you're passing. Now, so I'm hoping that we are done with call transaction. I'm moving towards session method. So I have opened a web page, I mean, for the theoretical point of view. Call transaction is basically synchronous processing. Synchronous processing is actually if the data is pushed towards database, then till the time system doesn't get an acknowledgement that this data is updated successfully, which means ISABRC is 0, it won't proceed towards next transaction or the next record or next data, means in our case next customer. That way it makes it slower, but at the same time we will call it like an online method, which means it will update one by one. So if I'm going to upload 10 customers, I'm going to upload 100 customers, then call transaction is fine. I'm going to upload 10,000 customers, then call transaction method is not suitable, because it will take lot of time and then it will just consume lot of resources. Now we have an option of synchronous or asynchronous database update. Now synchronous processing is one thing, it will push the record, it will get the acknowledgement, but again we can ask the database to do a synchronous or asynchronous update. It all, the control can be provided to the database itself via update S. S means synchronous, you can put A here like this, asynchronous, up to you. Transfer of data for individual transaction, as I said, like one by one, not suited for bulk transaction, that is GS. No automatic error handling, so that is fine. That's why we are using the concept of BDC MSG COLL. So BDC MSG COLL is actually, it's a standard structure provided by SAP, which will have certain fields here, and then those fields will be filled at runtime if we want BDC to capture those messages in those particular field. Later, using a function module, you can set a format. Let's go back to that web page. So cover the theory part. Now a session method is basically an asynchronous processing, which means I have 10,000 customers, I'll push all those 10,000 customers in one go to the database. I'm not waiting for any acknowledgement like we were doing here. Synchronous database will be updated only in a synchronous mode. So here it could be synchronous or asynchronous, here it's only synchronous. Transfer of data for multiple transactions, yes, we can do that. What we can do, we can create the recording of multiple transaction, and then I'll show you, just put it on hold for now. Best suited for bulk transfer, that's what we discussed earlier. Automatic error handling, will see. SAP standard approach for data transfer, in certain cases yes, not in all cases. Standard approach I won't say. So okay, we'll close this for now. So what we will do, we are going to use the same program. We are going to make it capable of handling both the methods. So now you guys know a radio button concept, parameters, r underscore 1 r underscore 1 radio button group, let's say rg1 default x, r underscore 2 rg2, like this. So one radio button will be x by default. We have to do it, otherwise system will get confused. So it's mandatory to have one radio button as default x. Radio button group should be rg1. Go to text element, selection text. So now you can see that the screen doesn't look that good. I'm not creating blocks and all. Let's focus on the concept for now. So call transaction or session. So we'll just modify the code slightly. So getting data is fine. We want to get the data in every case. Now if not IT final is initial, so what we will do, if r underscore 1 equal to x, this is fine. Let's keep the code as it is. Else perform session BDC. So we know that this does not exist anyway, we are going to create it. So the very first thing which we want to, so I have opened another web page. First we want to understand the concept, then we will write the code. By the way, people who are new, they can go to this web page, sites.google.com/site/ABAP, and then they can get the links towards many things. By tomorrow I'll be uploading a sample resume of an ABAP consultant so that people can refer to this, and slowly I'll upload more contents. So basically you'll find all the links here. So now if you see here, we are getting the file, we are converting it into a normal internal table. So the very first thing which we want to do is we want to open a group for that BDC, which means let's say it's like I'm going to upload 10,000 customers, but then I'm going to upload in 10 go, which means I want to create a session of 1,000 customer at a time. But then all those 10 sessions will be a part of one group. Before we actually go to the session, I'll show you something else here. The transaction code for session is SM35. So you can see that we have a session name here, then we have the user who created it, status, new or executed or error, date, time, which program, whether the session is locked or not, authorization for that, how many transactions, what is this, how many transactions with error, in this case no, here all went to error, total screens. So what actually happens in this case, so we have a predefined, so we have a session like this one which will be created by our program. You'll see that happening now. In that session we have couple of facilities. For example, we have a session which we can just put it on hold. We don't want to process it immediately. That way the session will be like in a new state. For example, my go live is going to happen on January 1st, and I want to make myself ready with the data upload preparation and all by November itself. So what I'll do, I'll create a session and I'll keep it on hold. So it will just go and sit in the system. Maybe in December end, December last week, I'll go and select that session and hit on process. So I'm not going to do it now. In this session, let's say it went into error. So if I go and do an analysis of this session, you can hit on analysis. So you can see that it automatically creates an error log here, in which, so as of now I don't see much thing, in which it will also capture the program, screen number, the transactions, and also a lot of other things, screen data. Here you can see that what kind of data we were trying to push, that data will be stored here, like which BDC, same like we had the recording, no, BDC OK code field. So for example, you have a session you want to analyze, you don't have the data, you can go and look at the queue dump which will store the raw data. So basically a session method is capable of handling the errors on its own. For now, let's come out of it. So the first thing which we want to do is create a group or open a group. So this is how we open a group, using the function module BDC open group. Just provide a random group name, let's say 10,000 customer or customer something. Keep the session, which means the session will be kept on SM35 user. It will capture your username. No need to put lot of things, other things here. Then exceptions, we'll see if we face any problem there. So let's quickly go and then call this FM. So very first thing which we want to do is we want to open a group. So for now we'll put a breakpoint here and remove the breakpoint from this screen so that we can just quickly analyze this. So anyway, in every case we want to upload the data. The data is there. Based on this selection, we want to go with the call transaction or session method. So no magic here, it's very simple. So it came here, the data is there in IT final. we have 5 records. Do an F5, do an F6. Size of ours is 0, which means there is no error. So it will go and open a group on SN35. Next thing which we want to do here is so someone is making funny noise. Looks like my kid. Okay. Yeah, so here what we are doing the same thing as we did in call transaction, like this, and then once we are done, once the data is available in IT_BDC data, instead of using a call transaction statement, we will call this function BDC insert. So actually we could have used this code itself, but for now let it be like this. It's not a good way, it's not a good code, I would say. We could have used it, but anyway, let's make it neat and clean so that we can understand. So loop at IT final, everything goes fine. Once we have the data in IT_BDC data, we will call BDC_insert. So you can also correlate it with the program which was generated. We did a BDC open group like this. Now we are going to do a BDC insert with the T code and then BDC data, and then we are going to use BDC close group. So we are doing the same thing which standard will do. We'll just visit that web page once more. So T code, tables, nothing else. So if I go here, so IT_BDC data, same thing we are using there, because that will be appended by these performs. And then once this is done, we will use BDC close group. Yes, so the end loop must happen after BDC insert. Yeah, so we'll just see this, all these things. So some good guy has already given all the details there on the site, so I can easily go and refer, because I also sometime I also need to refer it. So okay, let's see what happens now. So I'm selecting session method, I'm selecting my file. F6, size of ours is 0, that is good. Now we'll put a loop, data will be appended. Let's jump to this function model. So my data is there, we do F6, size of ours is 0, again. Now BDC close group, which means we are done. F6, size of ours is again 0, no problem at all. F8. Now I want to go to SM35. So you can see that there is a session name with what I gave in the program, created by my user on this date, this time, this program. You can see the program name, it's the same program, everything. We have 5 transactions, we don't know how many, 15 screens, I think 3 screens per transaction. So 5 transaction means basically 5 customers. Now if I, okay, let's visit the web page once again. So there also nothing but process. Yes, so we'll do a process. When we do that, we have the option of doing it in foreground, which means call transaction mode A. Let me see if that program is. Display errors only means call transaction in mode E. So mode N, mode A, mode E. So mode E, this one is mode N, which means no screen. Mode E, mode A, all screen, only error screens. Target host, sometime what happens that you want to process it on a different server. In case your current server is busy or instances are not free, so you might see that as of now I am having only one server, but then if in case your client is rich and then they can afford multiple production server, you can select the one which you want and you can do your processing there. It's applicable for background jobs also. These things, extended log, let's select this and process. So only if there is an error it will stop. So you can see there is an error, cursor field E does not exist on the screen. So still working. It came to next transaction, so you can see we are getting these errors. So So by default the OK code is /o, that is enter. If I do like batch end, then it will end it here itself. Go to overview. This is my session. I had 5 transactions, none of them went into error. 5 processed successfully. Let's analyze the session. You can see this log. Automatically it will create the log. You can see the errors here. So basically, earlier whatever we were doing through call transaction and then BDC MSC call structure, errors into IT BDC MSC call, those kind of things, and later displaying it in explicitly in an ALB output. So that thing is basically taken care by the standard SAP itself. So session method is actually capable of handling the errors on its own. The other thing, you can keep the session, you can delete the session, you can schedule the session for later stage, you can log the session, release the session, whatever way. I mean, it's giving you more flexibility. So when there is a huge set of data, you can go with session method. You can export this session. You can export this session. So you can export it in a notepad format and then again go to the different system, import that session. So you don't need to run the program there. Directly you can import it there. So a lot of flexibility. You can just export, import, the same thing which we saw. You can edit the recording, select it, edit anything if you want to change there. Log. So same log. So a lot of flexibility, and then that flexibility also comes into picture when you are actually programming it. So what you might want to do, so there could be one scenario I was just looking into. So what happens, you created a session, and what you want to do, that the moment your customer is created, you also want to create let's say you also want to update the customer details. Let's say the customer number is created, then you want to update the details. So xt01 is actually creating the customer. What you can do, you can create one more set of recording for xt02. Then you can call that recording here itself, or maybe here. Let's say once this is done, you can call that recording here. You can do one more BDC insert for transaction xt02. So the concept here is, I'm not going to do it, it's very boring. So call function BDC open group, you opened BDC session, build BDC data and call BDC transaction 1, which means xt01. Then I'm saying again build BDC data and call xt02. You can keep on calling multiple transactions, and later you can do a BDC close group. So if you have a dependency on different kind of data, for example, first the plant should be created, then a customer should be created, then a vendor should be something like that. So this BDC session method provides you that flexibility of calling the multiple transactions in one shot. You can do that. So if you don't keep X, which means once the session is processed, it will delete the session. So once this is processed, it won't be shown here. You can delete this explicitly also, or you can lock it so that no one else can process. So you'll see those kind of flexibilities in session method. So that's how we have two different kind of uh, data upload technique here. One is called transaction, the other is session. Session will have more flexibility. It's like recommended. Call transaction is kind of online. Now there is one more thing. What you want to do, that every time when you create a session, you want that it should be processed parallelly automatically by the system. So to do that, what you need to do, it might be an interview question for many of you. RSBDCSUB. So there is a program, standard program provided by SAP, in which you can just give the session name, create it in on date, which system, and then what you can do, you can just so if the session name like ADIGRP, if we give it here, then SAP will process that session automatically. So there are two ways of doing it. What you can do, you know that all my in this program all my sessions are created with the name of ADIGRP, which means all my transactions will be inserted in ADIGRP session name. So once your BDC insert is done and you do a BDC close group, what you can do, you can schedule this program RSBDCSUB as a background job using the function module job open, job submit, and job close. I have already discussed this in one of my videos. Job open, job submit, submit this program RSBDC, BTC, whatever it is. We know RSBDCSUB. So you can just schedule this program with the session name, because session name you are getting here. So call this program in background after this and it will just process it parallelly. That is one option. Second option, you can directly go to SM36 and then schedule this program in background. So what it will do, it will just keep on processing all the sessions as and when it will get a session. So this is another interview question. So, and also important concept, RSBDCSUB can be submitted in the background or not even background. You can just write it directly. You can write a statement here. Submit. Maybe what is the syntax? I forgot. You can call this in background or you can directly submit it. Submit report 1 using selection screen like this. Using selection screen. So here if I go to this program, the selection screen would be 1000. I have already explained this. By default SAP provides the selection screen as 1000. So submit RSBDCSUB using selection screen 1000. What else? With selection table this, with this. So I am not giving all these parameters. Instead, if we directly submit this program, but at the same time I see a risk here that I don't want to submit it automatically, otherwise it will just start processing lot of pending sessions also, which I don't want to happen. So what you can do, you can this using selection screen 1000 with yeah. Mappy is the session name. Von bis. So von is actually from, yeah, von equal to bis side item. That's it, I think. So now if I run this program once again, let it be like this. Let's run this again. Session method, select the file, execute. Directly jump here. So we are actually submitting this program with this. So before this, if I go here and I call it again, you can see I should have given a different name, but okay. So we are still in the program. So if I do an F6 here, it actually went inside the report. If I do an F8 here, so you can see one session selected to be processed with this session name. So it's already transferred to background processing. So this way you can make the session processing automatic. So you can see that this is actually being processed in the background. I think still running. So on SM37 you can see that my program actually RSBDCSUB tried to process this session in the background. So it went into error. Error and all is fine, but the purpose of showing this was actually that how you can automate the session processing. So it's incorrect. I'm not bothered what is incorrect and all. So it actually happened in the background. Field E, actually it should be EN. So all the errors are captured here, none of them were processed. Earlier it actually went into error mode and then I kept on correcting the data. Went into error and all. That is fine. I can delete the session if there is an erroneous session, I can delete this. So I hope you guys are now clear with the call transaction and session method. I have been receiving some good feedback and a lot of questions. I'm just responding to everyone based on my free available time. But at the same time, I also appreciate people uh, for providing the feedback, of course, for the good feedback. And uh, you guys are always welcome to post any question. My website is there, please. My website is already there, please visit this as and when possible. Just go through all the links and drop me an email on this ID. I'll just revert back as soon as possible. So if I go back to my agenda, so we are currently working on let's remove this crap. So we are currently okay, so we are done with reports. We are currently on convergence and working on BDC. So in BDC we talked about call transaction method, we talked about session method. We have another method called batch input or direct input. So basically if you see it carefully, so whatever we are doing, actually system goes screen via screen. Okay, let's not talk about this for now. So system goes screen via screen, field by field. But then there are scenarios wherein we directly want to push the data into the database automatically, which means I'm not going via any screen field because there is no transaction exists at all. Then what I want to do, I want to dump the data into the database directly. And when this situation happens, this will happen mostly in case of a custom table. So I want to dump the data directly there, and I don't want to do any screen validation because there is no screen exists at all in reality. But then I want to do certain database validation, which means in the field of let's say date field, I don't want to insert the name. Database should validate that this can contain only numeric data or a date format, and then it won't accept the char format. So that kind of thing can be done via a direct input method. So direct input method generally it's not being used that frequently, but yes, I have seen projects using it wherein they have received the data from non-SAP system. They want to dump directly it into a Z table, which will later be used in different processings. So that is called direct input. So for now I'll stop here. Just you guys can just practice and enjoy the session method. In the next session, because I wanted to discuss on the table control that was in my agenda for today, but then I thought let's go ahead with the concept first. So in the next session we will discuss about table controls in BDC. Then we will move to BAPI, and then we will compare that what kind of benefit BAPI offers over BDC. So thanks guys, and then I hope you'll enjoy this session. Keep posting your queries. Of course, make it like very crisp and clear so that I can also respond accordingly. And thank you. Catch you once again. Bye.